Thank you so much for watching Parliament Television, and we're back on the mandate. And today we interact with the Zambia Qualifications Authority. And my guest on today's program is the Chief Executive Officer from the Zambia Qualifications Authority, and this is Mrs. Miriam Chiaba, who will highlight what this institution is all about. My name is Posent Ndovi, and thank you so much, ma'am, for according us this opportunity to learn more about your institution. The mandate.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure joining you on this journey on the mandate.
Let's begin by looking at the year your institution, your authority was created. Which year was the authority created?
It was created in 2014 through an act of parliament, the Zambia Qualifications Authority Act number 13 of 2011. Okay. And you can tell, 2011, the act was enacted, but we only started operations in 2014, though fully operational 2015. And from then, we've been carrying on our mandate.
How's been the 6-year journey so far?
Very interesting. You see, before the Zambia Qualifications Authority there wasn't any institution regulating qualifications. So what we had was a situation where any institution had its own standards. UNZA, CBU, and we had a lot of private universities. As you can tell right now, we have University of Lusaka, Apex University. What standard were they following? Each one of them was basically following their own standard. We do have standards generally, but there was no one coordinating that. So the Qualifications Authority then started in 20, like I indicated, and we had to start from scratch. Our office was out in the Ministry of Technology and Science, which was Ministry of Higher Education. We set up from scratch, working with stakeholders. The journey has not been very easy, but we had to work on standards, work on policies, procedures, both technical in terms of the work that we do, and working on the actual hardcore stuff, the systems in terms of financial. You're talking of IT systems, and everything had to start, from scratch. From then. Interesting. The mandate of the authority is to develop and implement a national qualifications framework. So that was a process that involved a lot of stakeholder consultations. And through these consultations, we basically then zeroed in on getting the mandate of the authority in place, the development of the National Qualifications Framework, which we now have, where now institutions of learning and industry, as well as government, can reference and say, the Zambian education system is like this. It has.
I know we'll talk about your mandate in detail, but let's talk about the structure of the authority before we get to your mandate.
Okay, sure. The structure of the authority is that we are under the Ministry of Education now. We've been since inception under the Ministry of Higher Education, but now under the Ministry of Education. So the Act basically confers the responsibility to the minister to appoint a board. So we have a board of authority, a board of governors, which is headed by Mrs. Anne Malata Ononoji. She's the board chairperson. And with supporting her, we have 10 other board members. And these board members come from different constituencies that represent the key stakeholders in the work that we do. So this board reports to the minister. And under the under the board then is the Chief Executive Officer, myself, who is responsible for the day-to-day management of the institution. I am supported by 2 directors. We have 2 directorates, one which is focusing on the technical aspects of the institute, and this technically means issues of registration and accreditation of qualifications, the standard setting bits of the institution, the core mandate of the institution, and to support the work that we do, we have our Corporate Services Directorate, which is headed by a Director of Corporate Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many Chief Executive Officers have served before you since 2014?
I was appointed in 2015 as the first Chief Executive Officer of the authority. So effectively what you see is being put in place by myself. With my leadership, basically have set up from scratch the institution. 2014, the institution was coordinated with the help of the Ministry of Higher Education staff. And the first mandate for the board when they were inaugurated was to recruit a chief executive officer. So from November 2014 to June 2015, they were in the process of recruiting, and I started work on the 1st of July 2015. So I've been the only one.
Let's get back to the mandate of the authority.
The mandate of the authority is to develop and implement the National Qualifications Framework. What this basically means is what is a qualifications framework? We're talking of developing and implementing a qualifications framework. Basically, this is a single integrated qualifications framework, a system, let me just say, a system of recognizing what qualifications you have in the country. Basically, getting together all the things, the aspects that you have in the education system and putting them in one system to ensure that you recognize the competences or the things that a person can actually do. So that is our mandate. So how do you actually then develop that? So you then ensure that you have standards that are speaking to a qualification. What is a qualification? At what level do you award somebody a qualification? So for purposes of our work, the first qualification that we recognize in Zambia that grants you some competence that I'm able to do this is at grade 7. So the qualifications framework itself, with stakeholder consultation, and also remember what we do in Zambia is not in isolation. So the development and implementation of a qualifications framework is to ensure international comparability of our qualifications. So not only international comparability, but within the country. Remember, I did mention before the authority came into being, anyone could award a qualification. Nobody knew, is this a genuine one? Is this not? So now what we're basically saying, locally, it should be comparable. I should be able to get a degree from UNZA with the same competences as a degree that I will also go and get from University of Lusaka. There should not be a difference. The difference may be in the style of delivery and so on, but what I am able to do as a degree holder should be the same. And that's what we're basically promoting, to ensure that there's that comparability. There's the standard, that is part of our mandate. The standards for qualifications are in place.
Okay.
That is
I've
basically.
Heard, sorry to cut you short. I've heard certain students in higher learning institutions complaining that in certain institutions their grading is not up to date. It's different from other institutions that are offering tertiary education. Your comment on that?
Well,
I'll give an example of Mulungushi and University of Zambia. Mm-hmm. Some students from Mulungushi, they'll say our standards are quite high as compared to University of Zambia and other tertiary institutions.
But the question you ask them is, what is the basis of them saying our standard is high? What is it that they are looking at? So those are issues that then, when you come to the authority, we look at. But you must remember that what we do at the authority is really the outcome of your learning, not the actual learning process. So that's what is important to take. What the viewer must be able to understand is that there's a process of learning and then there's the outcome. What the Qualifications Authority is looking at is the outcome. So to assure what is happening with the training, you do have other regulatory authorities who take the guidance from us who are responsible for the outcome. So we are responsible for the outcome.
So how do you determine the outcome?
So we determine that by giving level descriptors, what we give level descriptors or learning outcomes. So each qualification level, so I was talking about the qualifications framework, right? It has 10 levels of qualifications, starting with the grade 7, it goes through to grade 10, to level 10, which is your doctorate. You cannot be awarded any qualifications beyond a doctorate. That's the highest. Generally, even internationally, that's what you find. So level 1 is grade 7. We do have our bachelor's degree, all the different levels. That is something that you can see from our qualifications framework. Each of those defines what a person who has gone through the learning and has been awarded the qualification at that level is able to do. So if I say I have a bachelor's degree, then you go to the corresponding standard, which is the level descriptor or the learning outcome, which defines what you must be able to do as a bachelor's degree holder. It doesn't specify in which field. It says as a degree holder, you should be able to delegate. You should be able to supervise. You should be able, I'm just giving examples. I'm not saying that's the word for word, right? So there are certain competences, there's certain knowledge that you must have in your field of study. There's a skill that you must demonstrate and the competence overall that you must be able to show. So certain things you must do with reflex, because, for instance, a technician does not have much ability to supervise, but it is expected that a degree holder should be able to supervise. So whether you are a journalist, an engineer, at degree level, there are certain things that you must be able to do, which we expect that you should be able to do. And so we give this standard, which has been developed in consultation with all the stakeholders in the education sector and industry. Remember, we are training you for industry, not for the education sector. So we agree this standard. And the authorities now that are regulating the learning process, which is the Higher Education Authority with respect to tertiary education in Zambia. You also have TVETA. So we give them that standard. And now it is their responsibility to ensure that they now implement that standard into a deliverable in the learning program. So then TVETA, HEA, the Director of Curriculum and Standards in the Ministry of Education for schooling, they translate that into what we generally, a curricula. That defines then what it is that will then assure us of this learning outcome. So that's the way it works. So you do find then that what then is happening at delivery level is a process of implementing that standard. So the implementation now has to be monitored. Of course, the delivery will depend on what lecturers you have, management, infrastructure, a number of things, which the Higher Education Authority must then go into the institution and ensure that all those are in place. And that's when then a student would then say, no, maybe our standards are higher or they are lesser and so on. But therein, a Higher Education Authority gives that confidence to the stakeholders. But for us, after all that is done, the process is regulated and so on, ourselves, we actually look at what the Higher Education Authority, for instance, is doing, what TVETA is doing, and confirming whether indeed they're ensuring quality assurance, whether they have to go into making further measures to ensure that they assure us of the quality. So when they bring the qualification for registration on the qualifications framework, we then say, does this meet the standards that we have set? So we assess it. And once we confirm it, they must then ensure that it is followed to the letter. So basically, then we do have our inspections to make sure that this is happening, but this is done at the higher education level because the Higher Education Authority and TVETA are the ones which go into the institutions to just make sure that is happening. So basically, if I can say that, so the outcome then of that is the certificate or the qualification which is awarded to a learner, right? So when they are awarded, somebody would have gone through the training. But if they are not successful, if you failed one subject, we don't want to deal with you because clearly you have failed something. So it means the competences are not not been achieved. So all those who are awarded with a certificate or a degree and so on will, in our instance, having registered the qualification on the ZQF, be confirmed to have met the standards for learning. Of course, there will be variations, and that's where you find that somebody from this university will say, no, maybe our standards are not as high. But for confidence and also to confirm is that they have met the minimum standards. You know, there's a minimum standard, and then others will exceed. Those who go below, obviously, we won't recognize.
Okay. I know the next question may not fall under your organization. It could be maybe for the Higher Qualification Authority, Higher Education Authority. The issue of one obtaining a master's degree before the bachelor's, before one acquires a bachelor degree. What could be your comment on that one? Not too long ago, we saw a growing trend. People skipping the first level, they rush to go and get the master's before they could do their bachelor's.
The question is that qualification recognized? Who has actually accepted them into the program to do that master's degree? So those are the questions to have. That will come to me, because from where we sit, remember, one of our mandate in doing the registration of qualification is that we recognize the qualifications that exist in a country. And in doing that, on the flip side, if a qualification is coming from outside the country, we reference it to our qualifications framework, and therefore we recognize that qualification. So there are certain things that we do, certain checks to confirm that this qualification, which is coming from outside the country, has met the requirements for it to be recognized as a qualification. So the question you ask is within our space. What is normal for any qualifications framework is that progression is level by level by level. So from a diploma, the expectation is that you go to a bachelor's degree, and the next is that you go to a postgraduate, and then you will go to a master's, and then you will go to a doctorate. However, there are exceptions. They are not the normal. There are exceptions. And those exceptions will count based on an institution's recognition of prior learning policy. So there will be a policy. It's not waking up and saying, no, we will get you because you have a diploma and we will give you a master's. No, there has to be a clear policy, and those are things that we then look at. There has to be a clear policy for recognition of prior learning, which says, for instance, if you have a diploma and have proven industry experience of more than, say, 10 years, that's in a policy. I'm not saying that's what should be. It's an example. So if you have a diploma and you have experience proven for more than 10 years, you will be accepted to study your master's degree. And in that case, the master's degree, upon successful completion of the course of study, can be awarded. But I must say those are exceptional cases. They are not such that if you have a person who is working in your company, in your institution, with that kind of certification, what we encourage as the authority is for you to bring the qualification for us to assess it for recognition purposes, because you may be employing somebody who says they have a master's when in fact it was wrongly awarded to them. So if it is wrongly awarded to you, the institution that awarded them will be basically told that we do not recognize it. Therefore, your qualification should actually be withdrawn because it has no value.
Let's look at some of the reforms that have taken place in your organization since 2015.
Well, I don't know whether you would call them, you would say reforms, because remember, we're just setting up. So what we are implementing is new thinking. Yeah? So,
but 6-7 years is a long period.
6 years, well, it's a long period of time considering that you didn't have any qualifications being recognized. Now we have
maybe let's take it further at the international level. Maybe you may make you've done something locally, then you've seen something happening
exactly.
But at the international platform.
Yeah. So when you look at the international platform, first when you look at Zambia, so just that pronouncement by the government and the initiative that was taken to put in place the Qualifications Authority brought recognition to Zambia's qualifications, because now the international community could come to Zambia and say, what is the standard for Zambia? What used to happen before was that qualifications were being recognized based on which institution you come from. So if you came from X university, in some cases you went somewhere to study, you wanted to go into the UK, they would not recognize you. So what the changes that have come up with the work of the Qualifications Authority in place is that the recognition of the qualifications of offered and awarded in Zambia is that there's a basis on which the international community, the region within the SADC, is able to reference. And now the recognition is not based on institution-specific qualifications, it's based on country-specific information, which we are giving them as a qualifications framework. And what we've seen is generally an acceptance of what our qualifications are, and also appreciation of our education system. We still have some challenges in that space, of course we'll get there, but to just mention that institutions that ordinarily before would have challenges with accepting qualifications from Zambia are now able to get in touch with us for reference in terms of what it means for one who is coming with a diploma. And we're able to give them the level descriptor, because comparing any qualifications outside your country, the level descriptors which I mentioned are a very key tool, which are now present. In terms of recognition, just even in SADC, we have been working in terms of promoting the qualification in Zambia. And this is how eventually we've been able to zero down on why our qualification has been having a challenge at bachelor's degree level to sell, and for one to get into a master's degree, as well as for one to get into a bachelor's degree. If you are in Zambia and going into some jurisdictions, not all of them, because I know you may have heard that, for instance, somebody with a bachelor's degree from Zambia, for them to do a master's degree, they've been asked to do a bridging course. Or for one with a school certificate, for them to get into a bachelor's degree in a university. In some universities, even in South Africa, you need to do some bridging course. So these are some of the issues that we are looking at. And what we have now given policy, advice, because that's one of our functions, is the need to introduce the A-levels certification in Zambia. So the comparison that has been done and which is on the table and has been accepted generally, just awaiting for final reaffirmation with the new government, is the fact that when you go, I'll give UK for instance, if you are going into university, your entry into university is an A-level qualification, which you will understand is beyond a school certificate. So A-level is 2 years after your school certificate. And for us, we enter into university with the school certificate. So remember, there's that 2-year now difference. When you then go into university in Zambia, you have 1 year, which is termed as your A-level learning. And then you specialize in your course after the first year. So you have 4 years of university. In the UK, they have 3 years of university. So that is a discrepancy already, because remember, you've done 2 years of A-levels, and on the other side, you have done what is known as A-level in Zambia first year. However, no one awards you with this A-level certificate. So the fact that they are not awarding you with the A-level, they are not confirming that you have A-level material. And generally, if you compare, A-level material, you should have done 2 years. Where do we get the 2 years at Zambia? We are actually getting it, but no one is confirming it. When you look at our school certificate content, it has more than the normal school certificate when you compare with other countries. That's why when you finished our grade 12 here in Zambia, a lot of people say, wow, a grade 12 in Zambia is much more solid than a grade 12 in another country. Why? It's because when we evaluated the content in our school curricula, it has extra content, which is A-level material. So we've got excess that is happening at A-level in school certificate stage, which is schooling side, and first the other one on the university side. So that understanding, for you to appreciate it in our area for qualifications, that is the explanation that we then give. And then an authority like ours will understand that explanation and accept for entry into university without the need for a bridging course. But without that, that is not understood, and you will find that a lot more people are not accepted. But currently, a lot more people are accepted into these universities without the need because of this engagement. So those are some of the steps that we've basically done. We've also basically made headways in terms of recognition between our different countries because we share information. So we have received certain concerns from other parties outside the country about qualifications purported to be from Zambia, where we've actually confirmed that these are fraudulent, for instance, and vice versa. We have had people coming to work in Zambia, and we have confirmed that some of these are actually not genuine qualifications because of this process. So there's that reform. And because of that reform, you have now seen institutions like Teaching Council of Zambia saying we want your qualification to be verified before you are employed in the teaching service. Yes? So it means now we are getting people with genuine qualifications being recognized. When appointments, certain appointments are done, especially those recently, the ones that were done for that required ratification by Parliament, our role has been to come in and confirm the authenticity of these qualifications, giving further confidence to the public about the qualifications that these people who are appointed hold. And if, of course, their qualifications were not genuine, that would have been picked. But so we've now brought in that. And the thinking generally, in most institutions, like now we have ZIALI. Before you get enrolled into ZIALI, you must have your qualification confirmed. And we're not just saying it was awarded to you. What we also do is we confirm, did the institution that gave you this award, is it genuine? Does it have the mandate to award a qualification? Because somebody can just wake up, Chiaba University can arise and give a qualification. How will ZIALI know that this person actually didn't go to a genuine university? Okay. Yeah.
Let's look at your institution. How is it contributing to national development?
Basically, from what I've said, in terms of that way, we're giving you confidence, we're actually assuring you that the skills that you are employing are right. That in itself is a start of bringing that contribution to national development. Beyond that, basically, when you then talk about what does this qualifications framework do, it's a single integrated framework. If you did your diploma in the early 90s or mid 90s or even early 20s, you did your diploma at Evelyn Horn. I like to give this example in journalism. You went to UNZA. They asked you to start from first year. They didn't look at what...
I just started last year.
Exactly.
That's why they said it exempted.
Thank you. So now, because of this push and because there's the progression, it shows when you look at the qualifications framework that you move from here to this to this. It compels UNZA, it compels the university to recognize the competence that you have. So that recognition of prior learning then comes in and you are given exemptions so that then you can start a year or two later recognizing the competences that you have. So that is one. Two, the the employment sector are able to draw from us and confirm that if this qualification is genuine, then I'm getting the right person. So then the question is, if they don't perform, what went wrong? But at least at starters, you can confirm that this person has the competences that are stipulated for this level. This is what they are able to do. So if you have a bachelor's degree holder who cannot write, who cannot supervise, then there's a problem. So, but what we are doing, what we are saying is, from this, somebody must be able to do this. When we then talk about some of the work that we do, I'll mention one other aspect, the National Occupational Standards. The National Occupational Standards define what profile of a job you must hold. So if we have, I'll give a basic chef in the hotel, how do you know that this person should be a chef? Because I know how to cook. I go in the hotel, I start cooking. Does that make me a chef or a chef de partie or a sous chef? Because they have all those categories, right? So what the Qualifications Authority has as its mandate is to determine occupational standards for any occupation. So we don't sit and determine these standards so on our own. We work with the industry and training provision and define what this standard is. And we give it to now the players. So we define in there what is expected of a sous chef. What age must they be? What qualifications can be awarded for one to be a sous chef? What is it that they actually do? What must they be able to do? So once you've defined that into an occupational standard, what happens is the hotels, the restaurants now, when they're employing a sous chef, they look at this job profile, the occupational standard, and from there they draw the job profile. And the expectation is that this person should be able to perform according to this job profile. That enhances what the national economy is able to record. On the flip side, on the training side, where it starts from, once they get the occupational standard, which, by the way, is one of the criteria that we look at a qualification when it's coming for registration, we say, have you looked at the occupational standards? How have you translated the standard for a sous chef?
I know it's very, very interesting, and we may not have enough time to exhaust everything, but let's look at collaboration with other government institutions. How is your institution collaborating with other government institutions?
I think we're collaborating very well. I've mentioned already how we're working with TVETA and Higher Education Authority. Remember, Higher Education Authority came into being at about the same time that we did. So for them, we can't really give much history there. But if you look at TVETA, TVETA before was just doing the learning programs themselves. Within themselves, they quality assure this and so on. But now, they have to bring them to us to basically okay them for dissemination, for training, and so on. So we work very closely with them in that. In terms of recognition of prior learning, which I mentioned before, there are policies that we've worked on, and we collaborate with them. On a day-to-day basis, we're working very closely with the Higher Education Authority, TVETA, and the Department of Curricular Standards, as well as the Examinations Council. In terms of confirming the authenticity of qualifications, verification of qualifications, you know that currently we still don't have the database for learner achievements, which is something that all the qualifications that are awarded in Zambia, we should have that record of whoever has passed at the different levels. Currently, they are sitting at the universities, they are sitting at ECZ, and so on. So we collaborate very closely for us to be able to confirm to industry that you were awarded this qualification. So Examinations Council almost on a daily basis. So we get these confirmations from them. We also work with the professional bodies. You know, Health Professions Council of Zambia, they regulate the health professions. They have to know whether this person who is coming has gone to a proper institution and they were properly awarded the qualification. And a lot of their members are not trained within Zambia. You know, we've had a lot of people going into China, India, and so on to do the training. So we verify qualifications for HPCZ, for Nurses and Midwifery Council of Zambia, which was former GNC, General Nursing Council. We work with the professional bodies. I did mention ZIALI. So we verify their qualifications for them, but we also regulate the qualifications they award by ensuring that they adhere to the level descriptors or the learning outcome.
So when are we seeing the authority having its own database?
Well, it's already being built because as we are registering qualifications, so for now we have over 330 qualifications registered, which is still a drop in the ocean. So to each qualification that is registered, all those who have been awarded qualifications going forward, remember, we can't go backwards. But of course, those willingly, they are on a voluntary basis, they are submitting those qualifications. So the ones that are now registered, the condition for registration on the qualifications framework is that when you award a certificate, you must bring that record to ZAQA. So we have partially started developing the database of learner achievements. We do hope that in the next 2 years, we can have all those records sitting with us.
I know it's your institution is a very critical institution, but how are you coordinating activities of your institution in all the 156 constituencies that we have dotted across the country?
Yes, 156, and we only have one office on Kawe Roundabout. The goodness of life is that there's technology, and our service can be accessed anywhere. Right now, as we speak, we service not just the 156 constituencies, but we serve even those people that are in the diaspora. We have Zambians and non-Zambians alike wanting their qualifications that were either awarded in Zambia or because they want to come into Zambia. All those are verified. We do have our qualifications management information system. It's online. Wherever you are, you can access it. You make your application online.
Okay, let's move on. I'm sure this is an interesting part where you need to highlight the successes that you've scored as the authority.
Yeah, I think the recognition of the qualifications in Zambia, for us that is big because now we can go on any international platform and you know, promote the Zambian qualification. Of course, it has gaps, but it is very appreciated, and that's what ultimately we want to see. But the occupational standards, we've been able to deliver 36 national occupational standards in 6 sectors. That in itself now starts a process of removing the issue of half-baked graduates, because then industry knows what to expect from the training sector because they've sat together and agreed the standard. So we do that process is very, very important for our development, national development, and we've contributed to that. Right now we are working on another set of 40 occupational standards. But what it has done is giving awareness to industry that they can actually demand an occupational standard for skills that have had gaps or are not there in Zambia.
As we come to the end of this interesting program, what could be your concluding remarks regarding your institution?
Regarding our institution, I would basically say that the members of the public, the government, need to realize the important role in having genuine qualifications in the country. And that process requires a lot of support. It requires that the qualifications that are brought for registration have clear standards that speak to the learning descriptors and that these are implemented. So that in itself needs a lot of support from the training side, the institutions that deliver training, to ensure that they bring these qualifications to the authority. However, to note for the members of the general public is that when the Qualifications Authority publishes a list, or if you are not sure of the status of the qualification you are pursuing, for instance, you are at University X and you are studying Bachelor of Arts in Laws, come to the authority and find out, is it registered on the ZQF? Because that is the first step for you to know whether you are getting a genuine qualification. And secondly, when you are an employer and employing somebody, please make sure that you confirm that this qualification is authentic. Otherwise, you'll be getting somebody from Matero University and employing them in your company. Ultimately, they will not perform. Yeah. So the Qualifications Authority assures the government, the stakeholders out there, of genuine qualifications, as long as we all participate in ensuring that you bring forward the information for us to be able to conduct a verification for you, for us to be able to register that qualification. And over and above that, we give international confidence of the Zambian qualification for it to be marketable and for you to go and work wherever it is you wish.
Mrs. Chawa, thank you so much for according us this opportunity to learn more about the authority.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Just hope and trust you've enjoyed watching today's mandate. We were interacting with the Zambia Qualifications Authority, and my guest on the program was the Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Miriam Chiaba, who has just highlighted what this institution is all about. My name is Posent Ndovi. This has been our today's mandate.